Hello and welcome to the Game Plan Coaching Podcast. Today's episode is a little bit different. It's less of a back and forth conversation and more of a rare glimpse into the mind of an expert coach and educator. I was introduced to John by a mutual friend called Lawrence Holstead after being drawn to a quote that John had posted on LinkedIn saying that resilience is the restoration of hope. And just from that quote, I knew that John was somebody I'd love to speak to. He's devoted over 50 years into helping young people learn, grow and thrive. John Hendry is a pioneer of relationship-based education. He's a long-time teacher, school leader, welfare specialist, mentor to coaches, and advocate for the belief that young people flourish when relationships come first. His work in Australia and internationally has shaped how teachers, schools, coaches and communities nurture resilience, well-being and performance. He's worked across many levels of sport, especially in cricket. In the episode, John shares his philosophy with real generosity. Instead of short answers and sound bites, he tells us stories, science, practical wisdom, deep reflection. What you're about to hear feels less like an interview and more like being invited into the worldview of someone who has spent a lifetime studying what young people need, not just to perform, but to become strong, hopeful and confident humans. If you can teach or coach or parent or influence young people in any way, this conversation is something to savour. Let's dive in to the conversation with John Hendry. Big question to start off our conversation today. What are your non-negotiables for coaches if they want to bring out the best in young people and young athletes?
They have to form an absolutely important and quality relationship with every person they're coaching. And that's not negotiable. You really need to have a quality relationship. They must trust the coach. If they trust the coach, that means that they feel safe. If they don't trust the coach, then you're not going to be able to coach them effectively. They will not feel safe. They will not engage. They'll feel tested all the time. And it's a waste of time. In the end, it's a waste of time. The second thing, and this is in the quality relationship they need to form, they need to form it on the basis of giving value to the individual. So the second most important element in a quality relationship that we have with everyone, but a coach in particular needs to have, is that they need to be able to forgive the mistakes that the person being coached will make. And they need to manage those mistakes in a constructive, learning, educative way. They cannot be punitive. If they're punitive, they close down that relationship. So they have to work with, not do things to their person they're coaching. So this is really power with, not power over. So a coach should never have power over the person they're coaching. They should have power with, because the whole object of the coach is to empower the player. To empower the player. So forgiveness is giving for the player. So if you just look at the word forgive, it's two words, for and give. And a coach needs to take the for off the front and put it at the back and give for the athlete, the player, give for the team, give for the competition. This is contribution on a major scale, but it is a quality relationship. The next element is that the coach must believe that the person they're coaching will always intend to do their best. Now, if they don't believe that, the player will know they don't believe that. If you don't trust someone, that person knows you don't trust them. So this is a real challenge. So really, I base the integrity part, where your intention is to do the right thing, I base it on two really underpinnings that are philosophical underpinnings. The first one is the Hippocratic Oath. There is no coach, no teacher, no coach, whatever, no one is licensed to harm another. So this is really critical to understand as a coach. So you have to be very careful, because you will make mistakes yourself as a coach. You'll misjudge. You'll jump in too early. You'll be emotional. So how you manage your emotional circumstance with that particular person you're coaching or with the team is unbelievably important, because they must never at any stage be dislocated and feel unsafe because you've been emotionally erratic. So this is really important. So first, do no harm. And the second philosophical underpinning that I think is an absolute must is the golden rule. Treat others, so the people you're coaching, as you would want to be treating if you were that person. So this is really, really interesting. Now, by law, really, you can't harm anyone. But if you're trying to develop skill, understanding, and all the types of things that are so critical in performance, engagement and performance in sport, then it's imperative that the person you're coaching believes that that is your intention. It's not to have power over them, but to empower them, to enable them, not disable them. The next, and all coaches would believe that they probably deliver the next, but many do not, and the next one is hope. Now, I just say to any coach, as I say to any parent or any teacher, but in particular, coach, do not steal hope. If you steal hope, it's almost impossible to return to the person you're coaching. They think that you're just not genuine, whereas you try to give it back. So you can't steal hope. And I encourage any coach to really look at the science behind hope and how it actually structures the brain. Now, let me just say that no coach would want to have a player who, when they make a mistake in the game or whatever it was not resilient, and to manage that mistake in the moment in a constructive way so that they can move forward and recalibrate and stabilize their performance. So really, resilience is the restoration of hope after a mistake. That's what resilience is. It's the restoration of hope. So what every coach would want to do is to create in their athlete, in the person they're coaching, a resilient mindset in reference to the game that they're coaching. It's an I can rather than I can't. And this is really, really important. So hope should never, ever be taken by a coach. This is critical. And the last of the serious aspects of, or the elements of a quality relationship a coach must establish is compassion. They need to understand, and compassion is empathy, so they need to understand the emotional makeup of the person they're coaching. So are they frustrated very quickly, or are they calm? How can we calm them down? How does the person I'm coaching manage it when they make a mistake, when they fail, when they're over anxious or whatever in a contest. So how do they manage that? So empathy, we know, every coach will know the emotional state of the person they're coaching. Either they're disappointed or they're very happy and they're excited or whatever. They'll know that. We all read other people's emotional states, and they're sent to us by our physiology as well as anything else. So they know that. But what's really important is that they must show care. They really care for the athlete. So when they're disappointed, it's no good being, oh, well, listen, you've got to live with that. Many athletes, especially young athletes, need to be assisted through failure, mistake. So if a coach doesn't do that, then very quickly that relationship will dissolve. So my approach has always been in my own coaching, which I've done at all different levels, underage, school, community, elite, state, the whole lot, is that I needed to have a quality relationship with every person I coached. And each relationship is slightly different because they're all different anyway. They come to a coaching circumstance in a different way. So the really important thing, and the most important thing in those 5 elements of trust, the coach must trust the athlete. They must forgive the athlete, give the athlete a break. They must believe that the athlete will actually go to every task intending to do their best, knowing full well that it won't happen all the time and that they'll have to deal with failure and mistakes and so forth in a constructive way. They must give hope, not take it, and they must show that they really care for the athlete. And that care really is really interesting, care about the successes, but care also about them in the failures. Because in sport, we miss out many times. So that for me, Tom, is critical. You have to be constructive, not destructive. And this is shown in every piece of research that's ever been done on hope. And the hope research is well worth exploring if you're a coach, especially if you're coaching at all different levels. So if you're coaching children who are just starting, be very careful that you don't steal hope. However, if you jump right up to elite coaching, they're just as sensitive as the little kids. When they miss out, when an elite athlete misses out, the consequences in a public sense is catastrophic. So just think of what are the English cricketers thinking about now? If they have told a destructive story about their individual and team performance in this farcical test match that occurred and finished in 2 days, if they tell a destructive story, the entire Ashes series is gone. If they tell a constructive story, so they're going to learn from it, make various adjustments, spend time, but trust one another. If they can do that, then that match is, even though it was a failure, they will learn from it. Because you learn more from failure if you have a constructive approach rather than a destructive approach. So hope is unbelievably important. As a coach, do not steal it. The last and most important aspect of a quality relationship element is care. And care is the athlete must know that you care for them. So this is being compassionate with the person you're coaching. So understand their emotional states. Get to know them. Get to know them very well. What what really annoys them, what enables them in an emotional state. And this is really, really important. And emotional regulation must be practiced by the coach as well as by the player. And working on emotional regulation is really, really important. So you have to, and you will know their emotional regulation because of or their emotional state, because of mirror neurons. We all know when someone's angry or disappointed or depressed or don't feel they can't. So what you have to do is understand that and then show them that you care. And this is going back to enabling them. And this is emotional regulation is really important. And I encourage, here's a really simple thing that comes out of Yale University that all coaches need to know. This is a simple rule for getting players, people you're coaching, to regulate their emotion in times of distress or times of dislocation emotionally. And this is Professor Mark Brackett's work from Yale, and he came up with a very simple thing, and all coaches can just learn this. He came up with an anachronism, which is a ruler. So recognize the emotion. U is understand the emotion. This is where you need to know the person you're coaching. So understand what the emotion is, label it, then express it. So there's R, recognize, U, understand, L is label it, E is express it, but to do no harm to yourself or anyone else. You must express your emotion. You can't let it build up and build up because it will destroy your capacity to stay engaged. And the R is to regulate. So how do you regulate your emotion? So a coach needs to know how each person they're coaching regulates their emotion. And this is where now, in the psychology of sport, we're now using things like meditation, mindful meditation. We're becoming aware of our physiology. And this is Dan Siegel's work in, the interpersonal neurobiology. And he's developed a whole science around it. And I've been using that in coaching since the early 1970s. Where it's critically important that you understand that some kids will come to you or some adults will come to you who really want to do well. They're desperate to do well, but they're anxious. So how do you actually deal with this in a coaching way? The only way you can get to them is through a constructive, really quality relationship where they trust you, where you give them a break when they get something wrong, and you'll get something wrong, and what you want them to do is to trust you. So like you trust them, they want to know that you'll give them a break when you get something wrong. And if you misinterpret something with them, they'll give you a break. This is unbelievably important, rather than hold something against you. And all the research on holding grudges just shows that you underperform, that in fact it dominates you. So this is unbelievably important. And they must know that every time you're going to coach them, you're going to really think about it and do your best. They know that you're hopeful for them, that you trust them, that you know that they'll have a good shot at it. And so these are just like simple things. But sport is primarily about relationships. Get the relationships right, then you can actually, you can coach. If you don't get the relationship right, you can't. So coaching is really, really important. From a point of view of a team, it's just as critical, because we have individual sport and we have team sports. So the team must trust you. You must trust the team. And in a team, those five elements work brilliantly. If you trust the team and the team trusts one another, it has a chance of performing at its best. But what if a team member makes a mistake? How do you manage that mistake as a coach will indicate to every other team member, what if I make a mistake? This is what's going to happen to me. So if I'm punished, so they become wary and they become less creative, less courageous to try something. So this is really important from a team point of view. But let me just give an example that might be useful for coaches who are coaching teams. Let's say this is a soccer team, and I'm in the team, and you're in the team too. I work really hard, and I get the ball, right? You make a good position, and I pass it to you. You stuff it up. You make a mistake. The opponents get the ball and they score. Let's say they score from that. Okay, so what do I now think of you? All right, hang on a minute. What do you now think of yourself in reference to me? What does all the team members think of Tom? God, he let us down. He made a mistake. Right, the next time a team member gets the ball, or I get it again, and you make a good position, do I confidently pass it to you, or do I hesitantly pass it to you? Within a moment, and let's say I give you a break, and I confidently kick it to you again, and unfortunately, you make an error again. Right? Has this magnified it in the end? Right? And what's the coach thinking about what's going on? And then what if the coach says, time out, Tom, off you come? Then that has a contagious effect on everyone else in the team. So how we manage this is unbelievably important in team performance, individual performance. And this is forgiveness. So does the coach no longer trust you that when you're going for something, that you're doing your best? So if he doesn't trust you when you go to practice, you know he doesn't. So you'll either fake it or whatever, but it's not genuine. And then you lose hope very quickly, and you reckon no teammate cares for you. And the coach doesn't either. It determines performance. It determines engagement. It determines belief in themselves and in the team. And this is where the coach has to, especially if you're playing at let's say it's underage and parents are there and they're naive and they're critical and a crowd is critical, then that means the coach has to be really strong, because it's pretty easy to be sucked into the emotion of a crowd. So this is really, really important. And I say that the most enabling thing you do as a coach is to really forgive the mistakes that players make. And how you manage the mistake will determine your success or failure as a coach. It'll also, this is damaging stuff, it will also determine the success or failure of the athlete you're coaching. Because it will change their whole mindset. And the neural pathways that you are creating as a coach must be constructive, not destructive. What we want is, people to go out there and really have a go. And look, let me explain, this is where flow comes in, where you want to perform at your best. This is Mahaley Csikszentmihalyi's work. When he went to the United States to look at at performance. He was looking at sport and all other things, but when he was looking at sport, he could not understand the psychology that was being used in sport. But he couldn't understand the psychology that was dominating the American psychological world at that time. And this was B.F. Skinner's work, and this was reward and punishment. It was believed that you could motivate players through fear. Performance could be stimulated by the fear of failure. Right? So this was really interesting. And of course, it can't be. So, and it then became very adversarial, and nothing was gone. Nothing was, no one was achieving at their best. Even those who were really playing well were not achieving it. So he looked really closely at it and said, "This is crazy. We have to get rid of reward and punishment. We have to get rid of fear." And this goes back really to the reptilian brain. It goes back to the brainstem, where what you don't want to have is an athlete who freezes when they make a mistake. You don't want them to fight when they make a mistake, or flight, run away from mistakes, because then they won't try it, right? But the last F, there are 4 Fs, the last F is really forgiveness. And of those 4, this happens in the reptilian brain. It's happening moment to moment with everyone. And we, irrespective of what we're doing. But in sport, it really is important, because we want, in the moment of challenge, we want a sportsman to make good decisions. And you only do it from actually pushing through from the reptilian brain to the limbic system, where you attach a feeling, through to the frontal cortex, where you make your decisions in those moments of challenge. Now, fight, flight, and freeze don't allow you to get through to the frontal cortex. It's not allowed. As soon as you become frightened, the amygdala, which is in the limbic system, where you attach feeling, it closes and doesn't let you through. So these are, and the same with when you're really, really anxious, you underperform, right? You're not able to make good decisions in that one moment. And I've created, and I can send it to you, I've created an affect performance model which looks at this in great detail. And I can give an example that coaches might readily know. The greatest practical neuroscientist in a sporting sense in the 20th century was Muhammad Ali. He never, ever allowed his opponent to make good decisions. He got them off their game. He did that by teasing them. So this is why in sport we have things like taggers, why we try to irritate, right? So why are we trying to irritate? We're trying to get inside our opponent's head to dislocate their steadiness of emotion, to get them to be dysregulated in an emotional sense. And once you've got that, then you control their performance. You control their behavior. So Muhammad Ali never, ever allowed. So he just, and this is what bullying is about and so forth. So what you're doing, he had power over his opponent through controlling their emotion. So this is really, really important. Coaches need to understand that some people who are more anxious don't have far to go to be emotionally dysregulated, right? Don't have far to go. So you want to quieten them down. That's why we use meditation. We quieten them down. We ask them, so when you've made a mistake, how do you quickly deal with that mistake constructively. What story do you tell yourself so that you can actually adjust what needs to be adjusted? You can think about it, make a good decision, and move on. So sport does this brilliantly because it's questioning you and examining you in every contest you go to. And so you really must work hard as a coach. So you have to understand that the whole business of how you react. If you react rather than act, then you will dislocate your athlete that you're coaching. You need to act, not react. So it's really, really important life skills. The type of thing that we're trying to get, sports people is to learn about life in a hothouse circumstance, because life is put in a competitive sense right there in front of them. So they have to. This promotes curiosity, and I'll list the type of things that we want our athletes to know. We want them to be persistent, curious. We want them to have an acute capacity to focus on a task. We want them to be able to analyze and synthesize data, to hypothesize, to establish a sense of coding and understanding and logical patterns that present in the game. We want them to be creative, to be imaginative, to learn about space and time, and to communicate with themselves and with their teammates. It fosters a sense of discovery and profile development. And you develop opportunities to learn about and establish the concept of resilience. It develops skills associated with cooperating and collaborating with others, establishing a purpose, being able to adjust and be flexible, and to be able to manage change, visualization, patterns of thinking, and to be able to read what others are thinking. What if I try this? We want them not to be rigid. We want them to be adaptable, to recognize an opportunity and to take it. Take the single. Don't wait, I'll wait to the next one, because you don't know what's going to happen in the next one. So it's moment to moment, and it presents this skill development. Now, these are life skills, but these are lived in front of you. It teaches our athletes about competition. What are the many facets of a competition? What does it mean to be competitive? Are we in competition with ourselves or with others? Is it a game? How does the game? These are really, really important things that coaches need to. And how do we manage winning? And how do we manage losing? How do we explain it to ourselves, and how do we explain it to the athlete? How do we explain it to their parents or to the crowd or whatever it is? And how do we face success and explain it? Do we think, this is easy, or I had to work really hard at that? And how do we explain failure in a way that's not going to destroy us? How do we hold our nerve when things that perhaps the wind is blowing a bit strong for us? I played at 3 balls and I missed them. So these are the things that coaches need to be able to manage, as well as regulating emotions and those sorts of things. Because an athlete will tell a story to themselves every time they miss out on something. And if that story is not constructive, then they will underperform. And you as a coach need to make certain that they understand that failure is just part of playing a game. You miss out, you drop the catch. So, the time you set, you haven't quite achieved. Oh, I can't do it. As soon as you do that, hope disappears from your backpack, and it's really hard to restore it. So sport examines us moment to moment. So this is where I say that the most enabling thing a coach can do is to get to know the person that they're coaching, inside out, their history, everything about them. Now, there are many ways of doing it, but they have to actually convince the person they're coaching or the team they're coaching that they really care. And the simple thing that I think they can do is ask whoever they're coaching to write a paragraph of what they're like at their best. This is really simple. Every coach can do this. What do you like at your best? And if you're coaching kids, ask their parents to write a paragraph about Tom at his best. What's he like at his best? But then ask each athlete to just write down 3 things that they think they personally need, 3 precursors to them being at their best. And then sit and read it back to the athlete and discuss the 3 precursors with them. And explore it. You're getting to know the athlete. You're getting to know their belief in themselves, their ambitions, everything. And you've got to do this with every person you coach. So if you're coaching a soccer team, you've got to do it with every player. And what you also want in a team situation is that every player shares those paragraphs with one another. And it's really interesting. I was asked to come in and help a female soccer side. Really, this is a Premier grade soccer side. And so I had them write a paragraph and 3 precursors, and then they were reading them to one another in groups of 3 or 4 or something, and there was raucous laughter. And this was a national soccer side, raucous laughter. And I said, "What are you laughing at over there?" And one of them said, "Oh, she says that she doesn't have sex before the game." And there was fits of laughter, and the girl from the other side of the room yelled out, "What are you talking about? I do."
I'd prepared lots of questions for us to explore and talk through in our conversation today, but I don't think I really need to use them because you've just been so generous in what you've shared over the last half an hour or so. And it's just been an absolute pleasure to listen to you. Can I ask one final quick question?
Please do, yes.
You've got oceans of experience, and I'm forever grateful for all of the insight that you've shared in this conversation. If you could leave the coaches listening with one thing, just one thing that you'd like them to think about in their work, what would it be?
So forgive, because they'll make mistakes. Give themselves a break. Don't be too hard on yourself as a coach, because you'll stuff up. You'll make mistakes. You'll misjudge. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to the person you're coaching. And by being kind, you're really developing a relationship. But most importantly, when they don't achieve what they want to achieve, or they don't achieve what you want them to achieve, give them a break. Forgive them. And if they know that, all of a sudden they will engage at a level that it will enable you to coach them. If you don't forgive, they will not engage at a level, and you will feel that you're not making ground. So forgiveness to me is the primary purpose in coaching.
John, thank you. This conversation, this time with you has just been a real privilege. I feel humbled, and just listening to you has been a fantastic experience for me. So thank you for everything that you've shared, and I'm sure our listeners have taken a huge amount from everything you've spoken about.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for listening to the Game Plan Coaching Podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please follow the show and share it with a coach who might find it useful. I'd love to hear your feedback and any ideas you have for future guests. You can get in touch through the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and go well in your next coaching session.